Today, I'm going to break down how to properly price your filmmaking work. What's up, my name is Eli Clark. I'm a sports videographer and creative at App State, and today we're going to be talking about pricing. Pricing is one of those things that's just not very straightforward. It's one of the most frequently asked questions that I get. What should I charge for this, or what do you charge? And I wish I could give you a straightforward answer, but I really can't. In this video, I've kind of broken it down into two parts to help you figure out what you should be charging. I have questions that you should ask yourself and the client, and then I have tips and things for you to consider before settling on a price. The first question that you should ask yourself is, who is the client? Are you shooting for a large company? Are you shooting for a single kid at a local basketball tournament? They're going to have very different budgets. You might at max be able to charge the kid maybe a couple $100s, and at max for a larger company, depending on who it is, you can maybe get away with charging them a few $1,000s. The next thing you're going to want to ask the client is, what are you going to be filming and what are the deliverables? Are you going to be filming sports? Are you going to be filming a commercial? Are you going to be filming an interview? These things require different equipment that you're going to want to charge for, and then make sure you know the deliverables. Make sure you know what they want. Do they want a long recap afterwards? Are you shooting a commercial? Are you shooting an interview? Are you editing on site and just putting out highlights for this Instagram? You want to know these things so you can charge accordingly for that. Another thing you want to consider is, what is the value that you are bringing to them? Are you shooting a new shoe release for an athlete? Because this is bringing them a lot of value and it's going to bring them a lot of money to themselves. So that way you can probably charge more than if you were just filming a highlight for a kid to post on his Instagram. That is bringing him some value, but it's not bringing a lot of money into him. Is there going to be any pre-production involved? Are you going to have to storyboard the video? Are you going to have to plan the video? If so, how long is this going to take? Make sure you charge for your time and make sure you charge for pre-production. I see too many people that just don't charge for pre-production, and let the client know. Let them know, hey, this is going to take some planning. I am going to charge you for this, and this is how long it might take. One of the most important things to ask yourself and the client is, where will you have to travel and what will travel look like? Are you going to have to get on a plane? Are you driving, and how long is the drive? You want to include gas cost and plane ticket cost in your price, or if the client will, it might be easier for them to just pay for that and then you charge on top of that. But if not, make sure you include that in your price. Another thing that you want to think about is your equipment. What cameras do you have? What lenses do you have? If you have a higher end, more professional camera, you can charge more than if you have a lower end Canon T6 or something like that, because the client is paying for the quality, so you're going to want to charge accordingly. If you have an FX3 or FX6, then obviously you can charge more than, like I said, if you have a Canon T6 or something like that. You also want to make sure that you cover the cost of anything that you may have to rent. So if you have to rent lights, if you have to rent a lens, maybe even another camera for an interview setup or something like that, make sure that you look up like the daily rates for renting these things and include that in your pricing. So if it's a 2-day shoot, maybe include the cost of the price to rent that thing for 2 days. If it's only 1 day, then look up the price to rent that for a day and include that in your price. So make sure you're charging for your equipment, you paid for this equipment, and you want to pay it off with your projects. One thing you can ask yourself and other people in the industry is, what are they charging? Figure out what other people are charging and compare your work to theirs. If you think your work is higher quality than theirs, then maybe you can charge a couple $100 extra. Or if you think maybe you're not quite on that level yet, then maybe lower the price just a little bit. And that way it gives you kind of a baseline for where to price your work. The last thing that you want to ask yourself and the client is, how much post-production is required? How much editing is it going to take? How long is it going to take to edit? What subscriptions and softwares are you paying for? You want to include all these things in your pricing. Think about your computer, think about your monitor, everything that you have to edit, you're putting some wear and tear on that, so you want to include that in your pricing. Now, maybe this is just a small fee. It doesn't have to be anything crazy, but you want to make sure that you're paying off these things over time with each project. So that's it for all the questions that you want to ask yourself and the client. So now I'm going to get into some tips and things for you to consider. The first thing is to make sure that you are not losing money. Like I said, you want to charge for everything. Charge for your computer, charge for your monitor, charge for your equipment, your lenses, your cameras, all that stuff. But if you have another job and you get paid this much for a day, and maybe you have to ask off to go shoot this, make sure you're getting paid more for that shoot than you would at your day job or something like that. So if you make $200 at your day job, then make sure you're at least making $200 on the shoot. The next tip I have is to not undervalue yourself and to know your worth. This is something that I struggled with at first. I was just saying yes to any project. Even if they were paying me maybe $20, I would just say yes. Do not do that. If they can't pay it, then that's on them. They're not gonna get a video, you don't have to go, great. You get to stay at home, you get to lay in bed, you don't have to go film. And plus, it's not worth your time if you're just going to get out of bed to go drive 30 minutes to film for $20. That's just not worth it and not worth your time, so know your value. If you're just absolutely stuck and have no clue what to charge, ask the client for their budget. Sometimes this can help you to actually charge more. Maybe you were thinking you were going to charge them $100, but you asked their budget and they said $300 to $500. So that way you can make even more money if you just ask them what their budget is. So if they say their budget is $300 to $500, consider all these things that I've talked about in this video and then give them a quote from there. This tip is going to sound weird, but not everyone should say yes. If you are quoting them a price and everyone's like, yeah, that's good, then you're not charging enough. But on the other side, if you're quoting them a price and every single person you ask is like, no, I'm sorry, like that's too much, then you're going to want to switch up your prices. So the rule that I go by is the 50-50 rule. I want around 50% of people to say yes and around 50% of people to say no. That's how I know that I'm charging the right amount. 50 to 70% of people saying yes, that means you're charging a fair price, but if lower than 50% of people say yes, you might want to consider lowering your prices a little bit. So the last and one of the most important tips I have for you is to make sure that the client puts a deposit down before you go out to shoot. So usually what I like to do is 50-50, so they pay 50% before you go shoot and 50% after you shoot and edit and all that stuff. So that way, once they put a deposit down, they're incentivized to go through with it and you know you're not going to get scammed. It's happened to me before when I just started out. Don't let it happen to you. Make sure they pay a deposit. If they're willing to pay everything up front, that's even better. But most of the time, paying 50% deposit before and 50% after is usually the way that I do it. So that's everything I have for you. If you have any questions about pricing, I can try to answer those in the comments if there's something that I didn't cover that you're curious about. But other than that, I appreciate you guys watching the video. Make sure you hit that like button, make sure you subscribe, turn on notifications for more videos, and I will see y'all in the next one.